same. Looking back at the past, all the lessons that I learned. Every fall, every loss was a bridge that I burned. Now I'm stronger, now I'm wiser, got the fire in my soul. Every step, every breath, getting closer to my goal. Haters gonna hate, but I keep my head high. Eyes on the prize, reaching for the sky. No pain, no pain.
Welcome to Check 1 2, where we give you the lowdown on testicular cancer by talking to survivors, advocates and supporters of testicular cancer, all here at the world famous podcast Studio Glasgow. Today's guest is Matthew Southgate, and to golf fans, Matthew is known for his performances on the golf course and in the world of professional golf. But in 2015, everything changed and he was diagnosed with testicular cancer at the age of just 26. In this episode, we talk about the pressures of elite sport, the fear that comes with cancer diagnosis, and how surviving it can change your perspective on life and golf.
It's the anthem of the streets. With the heart of a lion, we will never face defeat. No pain, no gain. We rise above the flames, through the fire, through the...
My name is Matthew Southgate. I live in Southend-on-Sea, which is in Essex. I've played on the DP World Tour for the last 15 years. And in 2015... very surprisingly and sort of out of the blue, I was diagnosed with testicular cancer. Was quite well looked after by the NHS and recovered pretty quickly and got back to playing golf. And since then, just tried to do as much as I can with raising awareness, really, for other guys in similar situations.
Yeah, it's funny, we were kind of diagnosed in and around the same year. I think your diagnosis, was it the July you were dinosed?
Yes, yeah, July, yeah.
Yeah, so I was diagnosed in the January of 2015. So, so just as I was kind of coming to the end of my treatment, you'd got diagnosed there. So, yeah. What do you remember about that kind of time? Obviously, you know, what were you, 26 when you were diagnosed?
26, yeah.
Yeah, so you're young, you're really kind of coming into, you know, like playing golf professionally, and then you're hit with a diagnosis like that. What was your thoughts first and foremost?
I mean, for me, like, my whole life's been around trying to perform well on the golf course, and I had just started playing some pretty good golf and sort of getting some confidence back and playing the best I had for like a couple of years. So, I mean, initially it was just such a distraction from the golf. It was obviously a big surprise because I didn't think there was anything wrong with me in the first place. So it was all a bit of a surprise. Then it was just like that uncertainty of how long everything was going to take and how I would recover, if I would recover. And you have thoughts go through your head like, am I dying? So it was very difficult to sort of focus on anything. It was a massive distraction to my whole life, really, while that was going on. So I think that uncertainty for me was really difficult. Going to bed at night thinking, what am I going to be okay or not? I didn't know enough information about testicular cancer to sort of know what might happen or what might not happen. It was just a bit of guesswork in my own mind. Now I found that really difficult.
Yeah. I was the same. I think that, the time that I was diagnosed, there wasn't obviously a huge amount, or there wasn't any stuff like the podcast, there wasn't guys talking about it like the way that we are now. So yeah, it was a strange old time, especially back in 2015, there really wasn't a huge amount out there apart from, like when I found like Cahonas, that was really great for me to kind of find a charity and speak to somebody in and around it. How did you find that you had testicular cancer? Did you find a lump? Was it a pain that you had? What was it that led you to going to seek that diagnosis?
Well, I've never heard of anybody as lucky as what happened with my diagnosis, really. So I was in the shower one morning and felt like I had a problem with the left testicle. I wasn't very happy about it, so I monitored it for a couple of days and it didn't really get any better. And so I had to go to the doctors. The doctor had a look, said that there wasn't really much of a problem, gave me some tablets. But because I was 26, he sent me for a scan. So obviously when I went for the scan, just for convenience, they scanned both, not just the left one, which I had a problem with. They scanned both. And it actually came back that I had a cancerous looking lump in the right testicle, which I never knew there was anything wrong with. I literally went to have the problem with the left hand testicle looked at, and then ended up with a diagnosis of the cancerous stuff in the right one. So I was very lucky, really, that ever came about. And I mean, I'm not really that keen on getting myself into the doctors and that, as you know, especially then. I'm better now, but I mean, I could have been walking around for months with that in there and getting worse. So I was very lucky in that respect of finding it. It was a fluke to find it, really.
Yeah. And how quickly was like your transition from getting that diagnosis to like having your operation to then going through the kind of the stages after that? What did that look like for you?
It was very quick. I got told of the diagnosis on a Monday in the morning, and I was in surgery having it removed by the Wednesday.
Right.
And then obviously they take it away and look what it was, and it wasn't too aggressive, and they got it very early. But I just wanted to get back on the golf course, so I did a lot of blood tests and bits and pieces with all the tumour markers in the blood tests, rather than, because it wasn't that aggressive. I didn't do any follow up treatment. I was offered follow up treatment of like a round of chemo or radiotherapy, but I just sort of said, look, I think I've been so lucky here finding it this early. I feel absolutely fine. I'd like to get back to the golf course as quick as possible. So rather than doing blood tests every sort of 6 weeks, we done those every sort of 3 weeks instead.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then obviously all of that just kept coming back all clear all the time. So I was like, well, that's after like a year or so. I thought I'm, you know, I was just lucky here, and I could just move on from it. So it's, yeah, I felt like I was pretty well looked after, and it was it was a very, very quick process.
Mentally, that must have been quite hard though as well, eh? You know, like you're saying, 1 minute you're playing some really good golf. You're like, golf's your life's focus at that point, and then suddenly, you know, you're a cancer patient. How difficult for you was that identity shift?
Well, I think I mean, it was so quick that I didn't really have time to think about it, but I really struggled with it afterwards, because it didn't matter how many times I said I'd been really lucky and bits and pieces. I think a lot of people just thought I was being very positive. So it was almost like labelled as that cancer patient. You know, every time I played well, it was like cancer survivor has played well, or, you know, and I found that really, really difficult, because I felt like I was almost a fraud, because it was a testicular cancer and it was removed, but there wasn't an aggressive chemo treatment and it wasn't drawn out. So I struggled mentally with that, really, because it made it sound like I'd been through something that was horrendous. And I just know so many other people that have had such a much worse experience than I had. I felt like I'd almost like wasn't doing the position of, like, it was like an injustice, really, that there I am labelled as a testicular cancer survivor. And I know so many guys have had it so much worse. But I think really the only way that I could get through that was to try to spin that into a positive of like, well, if the media are going to keep saying that I'm this testicular cancer survivor, maybe I should just run with it and try and help raise some awareness. And hopefully if people are watching the golf, or they know me through the golf, maybe someone will go to the doctors and get checked because I've recommended it, or it's okay because it happened to me, or well, I don't know. I really struggled with where I was with being a very healthy golfer out there making a living, and being someone who had a cancerous tumor removed because I got lucky with a diagnosis. So it was all a bit of a strange time, to be honest. And I just wanted to get on with my golf. To be, you know, I didn't want to get hung up talking about the testicular cancer stuff. But I think now, years later, it's nice to see that you do get through that, and then you have that positive input on other people. You know, I have had a few people that have messaged me on Instagram from all around the world and stuff, and said, "Oh, we heard you talking about the testicular cancer, so I went to the doctors and got checked and stuff." You think, well, that's great. That's all you can do. But that's the biggest positive that you can put back in.
Yeah, yeah. It must be so difficult as well. Like, it took me a long time to use that phrase about myself, and even like I only had one round of chemo, and it was actually the other stuff around my chemo that was worse. Like I ended up with sepsis and avian flu, which I think was actually worse. I think if I didn't get any of that, my like cancer journey as such would have been pretty straightforward. It would have been removal and then a couple of rounds of chemo, feeling really awful for a few months, and then but nothing major. And I really struggled when I started with Cahonas, when my boss Richie would even say, but you're a cancer survivor. And it took me a long time to kind of be comfortable with that moniker as well. And much like you, I thought, right, okay, I'll try and spin that type of language in and around something that I can use just to spread awareness. And then obviously as part of my job, I'm doing that now with the charity. But to have that media spotlight, how difficult was that then? Obviously you've said that, they were putting that on you, but to have your return to golf, almost overshadowed because you had that testicular cancer diagnosis, that must have been mentally draining just in of itself.
I think the big thing for me is obviously golf is a very, very mental sport. You need to be mentally very strong to perform at a high level. And my performance after the testicular cancer was so much better than what it was before that I found it difficult that the media had used that was the reason. That's the sticking point. I was to a level as a golfer. I had testicular cancer. Then I got better, and it was almost like, oh, he's got a new lease of life, and I bet you see things from a different perspective and all this. And I'm like, I've always been a really good golfer. I'm a good golfer because I've worked my whole life to be that. I've left school at 16, and I've dedicated my whole world to trying to become the best golfer that I can possibly be. The testicular cancer was a bump in the road, and it was something I was very lucky with and dealt with. But I really struggled with that label being on that as to that's the reason why he's playing well. I always felt like nobody ever just sort of said, well, he's been a really good player for a long time and he works really hard at it. It was like, oh, well, you've had cancer now, so because you've survived that, life's now great. I sort of thought that's not how I felt at the time. I felt like I'd been, the one thing that I felt from having the surgery and bits and pieces was the drive. That drive was there, sitting on that sofa, and I couldn't really walk, and I was in a lot of pain, and I'd had the right testicle removed, which is, it's very, very painful. And I think sat there those days, I did find that drive to when I can get up, I am going to get back to the golf course, and let's give this a really good go. You only live once. Let's give this I don't want to waste the opportunity that I've got as a golfer. So it definitely spurred me on. But it didn't change how good I was at golf or help my performance very much.
Yeah.
People have a funny way of, I think people like answers, don't they? And it's like that's the most obvious thing that you can find. So just go with it, whether it's accurate or not. So it's a very difficult one, isn't it? Because I feel like we're all cancer, not just testicular cancer. Nobody chooses to have cancer, and because you didn't choose it, you don't want that to define you. I don't think there's many, I haven't spoken to many cancer survivors who make their battle with cancer their biggest achievement. You speak to great mums and they're more proud of being a great mum than they are of surviving a breast cancer. They're more proud of being great in the work environment or successful husbands or success. You know what I mean? There's a lot more to it. I don't think not many people would say, oh, well, battling cancer was my crowning glory. That was my big, do you know what I mean? I think everybody feels it's all a bit of luck and you get well looked after and it's nice to move on afterwards, but it's not a very nice feeling when it is the thing that sort of defines, someone puts your name into Google, they've never met you before, and bang, there it is. You go, oh, you had testicular cancer. You're like, well, yeah, I've had a lot of good rounds of golf as well.
Yeah. You find that happens quite a lot, especially like in the sporting world, with the media, they'll grab onto that diagnosis. Obviously, there's been a few footballers and rugby players that I've spoke to that kind of had similar things. It's like I didn't become a better football player because I lost a testicle, and it's that highlight in and around it. It's like you just wish that they would look at it from a different angle and come to you about the awareness of it rather than saying, oh, look at him now, he's got this new lease of life. It's like you say, you've played golf since you were you know, probably a really young kid and put the 10,000 hours in, and you know, it's strange that they kind of look at it like that. And
I
maybe
think
puts
as well,
guys
like,
off.
you know, you get a lot of that, a lot of stuff in sport. People try to understand what has happened in a performance, whether that's football or rugby or darts, or you know, sometimes you can't you can't explain performance. Sometimes you just have a really good week, and you were really really good, and you just had a really good week. You know, that's happened loads of times to loads of different sports people, that when they're on their game, they're just brilliant at what they do. And the superstars are the guys that seem to do that more often. So your world number
Yeah.
ones, your Roger Federers, your Rory McIlroys, they seem to hit those levels more often. So I feel like when an underdog does quite well at anything in life, when an underdog does quite well, everybody wants to know why, how did that happen?
Mhm.
Nobody's ever really happy with the simple answer. In the media, it's like the media don't have much to talk about if it's just, well, he's a really good golfer and he's had a good week because he's a good golfer, and that's what happens. It's like there has to be some sort of substance as to why did that happen, how did that happen. So if they can clasp onto something and make that their story, they seem to be very good at that. You know, it's not spinning a story. They don't make stuff, too much stuff up in that respect. But if there's something to cling on to as the story, like that, you know, a footballer, he's playing in League One, League Two, then there's a cancerous thing, and he ends up in the Premier League. It's like, well, there's no other reason for it. It must be because of that. And you think, well, it's not
Yeah.
necessarily true, that, you know.
Yeah, which probably gets stuck behind the stigma around testicular cancer anyway. That's, you know, I don't know if this was ever said to you, but a lot of the guys I've spoke to, they're always told, well, you got the best cancer, you know, and it's like that in itself is quite like, well, there isn't a best cancer, you know, and they probably look at it like, well, he got this cancer and he's able to kind of go on and do this. It was the best one for him because he was able to recover and do this. And yeah, it's still strange that there is some unusual kind of thoughts in and around sport and cancer and the kind of recovery from that. Obviously, you know, like having your operation, how did that impact your recovery going into like try to play golf again? You know, what was your physical recovery like?
Well, I mean, it was horrendous, to be honest. I
Right.
was in, you know, it was like so painful to just walk around and stuff, and then obviously to try, when you swing a golf club, you use almost every single muscle in your body is doing something during the golf swing. You know, almost every part of you is on the move, and you know you've got to keep your posture and keep your balance, and it takes all your muscles to do that. And being able to do any practice to any sort of level that's going to benefit getting ready for tournament golf. I mean, it just took weeks and weeks, and I was out, you know, chipping and putting balls and just trying to take it easy, but also trying to do enough to actually benefit from doing that practice. And it was just, I remember getting it in my head that the further I go, the better I'm going to get, because I'm going to get stronger again. I'll get fitter again, and the pain will dissipate. It will go. The fitness levels will come back a little bit. I was just shattered. You know, I'd go and walk a few holes in pain, and it felt like I'd walked like a marathon
Yeah.
distance. You know, and I hadn't. But I kind of knew that it would improve. So it was probably, I don't know, it was probably somewhere like 8 weeks, 8 to 10 weeks before I actually started feeling a bit more like me again, you know. And
Yeah.
I remember, I mean, it was so difficult. I remember being at the house and I remember thinking, I need to go to the toilet 15 to 20 minutes before I need the toilet, because otherwise I won't get there. You know, so
Yeah.
I don't need to go, but just in case I do in 15 minutes time, I better leave now, you know, because it took so long to hobble off to the toilet. It was, you know, and then, you know, it was such a struggle. Like I gained a lot of weight as well, like where I wasn't doing any physical exercise for a few weeks, and I was on some pretty strong painkiller stuff, and that was stuffing my stomach up. I had a lot of meals go in, nothing come out, and I remember at the end of it all, there's photographs of me at the end of it, and I looked so big and bloated. I just looked massive, and I just remember thinking, I've got to get this weight off as well. It didn't make me feel very good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the thing as well. People don't realize like how much pain makes you tired as well. I had that was a revelation to me, like how much, like when people talk about having like maybe chronic pain and they're always tired, I never really understood that until I had pain that made me feel like that. It was awful. You know, you were just burst every day. So to be out there trying to walk, and you're right, even like walking, you know, a few 100 yards, you were burst after it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, like with like your kind of ideas in and around awareness, what is it that you think that we could be doing better? Like especially within, you know, like within sport as well. You don't find, you know, the men's game's huge for golf, but you know, you don't find much in terms of kind of health awareness in that regard. Is there anything that you think, you know, that should be getting put out there more, especially in the golfing world?
I think the big thing with the golfing world, especially from an amateur standpoint, is that you get the club community of a lot of members, golf clubs. It's a hub of activity, and you get a lot of similar faces, and people are in their comfortable environments. And I've seen at my home golf club at Thorpe Hall, they've had a few people come in to do different checks and scans and prostate cancer and all that sort of stuff. And you seem to get quite a lot of members that will probably feel a lot more comfortable having a prostate examination in their own little safe environment, alongside other club members that are doing it as well, rather than taking themselves off to a doctor's clinic to do it. The test is exactly the same, but the access to it, I think golf clubs are a fantastic access point for people to be checked and have those days of awareness. You know, it's like we've got a lovely locker room here, and there's a very private little section to it. You could almost set up a little clinic for several things during the year. But I actually think that the participation in the members that would go and use those services would now be at its highest point ever, you know, where people are more aware and they're a lot more sort of self-conscious to go and get checked in bits and pieces. And I think that's a credit to all of the awareness of all the cancer and other bits and pieces as well. But I think a lot of the time it's giving people that access to have easy testing in a nice, easy environment where it's not intrusive, it's not scary. And once you kind of get over that initial sort of fear factor, you know, I didn't particularly like going to the doctors and having to just continuously take my pants off all the time. You know, it's not, you know, and people don't like to talk about it. And I would never say that I'm the most confident person with my clothes off, you know, and I don't think that's not anything to be ashamed of. I've got what I've got. I'm made the way that I am, but I'd rather that be private to me. You know, I don't look at myself in the mirror and feel embarrassed, but I certainly don't want to go parading around showing nurses and doctors what's on display. That's me, that's my body. I found that quite intrusive, especially when the next specialist is someone that you've never met before, and there's that little bit of awkwardness. You know, you can't really prepare for that. And I feel like that fear is enough to stop people from even going to get checked. What am I going to feel like if I take my clothes off? Or what if I do need a prostate exam? Or what if I do need that? What if you know, and it's just like your brain goes to the fear of the outcome, and that's not real. That's fictional. Your brain is making up the fear, and that fear is enough to stop you going, which actually could cause you to die, because you could have a problem and you never get, and then it doesn't get solved. So I think really the one thing, if I could set anything more in motion, it would be those, especially in golf, would be those clinics and doctors that are on the move doing checks at golf clubs, in, you know, advertise it, put it in the men's toilet, put it in the ladies' toilet. You know, I think people, even like that with the ladies' stuff, I think if you put up that there was a big breast cancer screening day and you put it in the ladies' locker room, I think ladies would far rather come and have 9 holes and a glass of wine and have their breast checked in the comfort of their own locker room with their friends than go into a clinic that kind of smells like a hospital, looks like a hospital, and makes you feel a bit uncomfortable with a doctor you've never met before that's about to see you take your clothes off. You know, I think making it easy for people to get the testing is a very powerful thing.
Yeah, and up here, you know, we're trying to do that as Cahonas. You know, we're pushing out to, you know, we don't just do these education awareness talks at schools. We do them at sports clubs. We do them at businesses. And you're right. I think you know, I've done a couple of talks where the people have went, oh, these are quite kind of like hard working class men. They might be a bit embarrassed. But there's, you know, the minute that somebody goes, oh, I had a problem with my testicle when I was 15. And then the guy there sitting next to goes, oh, did you? So did I. You know, and it's like there is a more comfortable kind of camaraderie in that, like you say, that safe space, that safe environment.
Yeah. And we're getting better. We are getting better. Certainly the men are getting a lot better at those things. I think the ladies have always been a lot better. Like, I mean, when I was a kid, the girls would go to the toilet together. They might, you know, they're a lot more helpful between their friends. Whereas I feel like the young lads, when I was younger, it's like if you had a problem, you just kept it to yourself. And I think that we're bridging that gap now. And I think you, like you say, if you sat in a bar, if you went to a pub and you said, I think I've got a bit of a problem. Like if I was sat in a pub and someone said, oh, I think I've got a bit of a problem. And you'd be like, well, don't be embarrassed. What's up?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I feel like my dad's generation, you wouldn't go in the pub and start saying that you had a problem with a testicle. You know, because you'd be, you know what I mean? It'd be that sort of socially awkward. We're getting better socially, I think, at talking about these bits and pieces. And I think a lot of that is probably down to the success rate of treatments, diagnosis, and people surviving and moving on. That it's actually like, it's not a problem. If you feel like something is wrong, go and do something about it, because it could be the best thing you ever do. You know, like that with me. I'm that doctor that sent me for that scan just because I was 26 and I just happened to be at home from golf and I just happened to have the time to go and have that done. Like, I could have just turned a blind eye to that. I could have just said, well, you've given me some tablets. I'm all right. I'll just take, you know, and the problem could have escalated and things could have been a lot worse. But because I was given such easy access to going and just having that scan, it's potentially saved my life.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely has. I think you look at the amount of guys who that's been the case of, you know, especially guys we spoke to in the podcast who have went to the doctors and done exactly, you know, their doctor didn't send them for the scan, but they gave them the tablets. And then they've went, oh, well, the doctor's given me the tablets. That's fine. I'll get on about. And then 6-9 months later, you know, they're back with still the same problem, then get the scan. So, like, I think it was amazing that your doctor chose to send you for that scan anyway, you know, because that doesn't always, anecdotally, that doesn't always happen. And at the top of this as well, you kind of talked about that kind of like that mortality feeling. You know, at 26, you got a kind of golf career ahead of you. You know, what were you? Did you think about, you know, I suppose dying in that respect? You know, was that something that kind of like impacted you when you first hear those words? Well, this is a cancer.
Yeah, I mean, mate, the biggest thing in my little world at that time as well is that my niece had been diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia, and she was in Great Ormond Street. So my family were ripped apart by this 18-month, 2-year-old little girl that we all loved, and we all thought that she was going to do really well to pull through that, and that was just harrowing, you know. And then to get my diagnosis on top of that, I didn't know what to do. I remember the day that I was diagnosed, I walked out of the hospital. I walked out of Southend Hospital. I couldn't believe it, and I didn't know how to call. I didn't know how to call my mum to tell her, because I felt like, how can I put this on my family when they're already up and down daily to Great Ormond Street, all saying their prayers and trying to hope that this little girl pulls through. And I mean, that was like the emotional roller coaster of having to call my mum and say, Mum, I've got a bit of a problem. Like, you know, you're not, you know, I remember calling her, check to see whether she was driving. You know, I said, are you doing anything? You're not doing anything dangerous. I was like, just take a sit down, you know, just sit down. I've got something to tell you. I was like, look, I'm going to be fine, da da da. And then when she was fine, she had a bit of a medical background, so she kind of knew what was going on, so she was fine. Then it dawned on me that my best friend in the whole world was my dad, and my car is at his house. I've parked at Dad's house to walk to the hospital. I've now got to walk back there. He's going to expect me to be bubbly, normal Matt. Hello, mate. How are you? Should we have a cup of tea? And I'm gonna have to walk in and say, I'm actually not great. Like, I've just been told I've got testicular cancer. I actually don't. I don't have the answers to any of the questions that you're going to ask. All I
Yeah.
know is I'm going back to the hospital Wednesday, and they're going to remove it. But I don't know I don't know what happens next, because it could be anything, you know. And that was. I think emotionally that was the toughest thing for me. I just felt like I felt like such a burden on everybody else, especially in the family, because of all the emotion that was already around that family at that time. I just thought, oh, it felt cruel to add more to everybody else's plate. You know, they're already stressed out and upset, and I come and add to it. It felt terrible.
Yeah. And I suppose that kind of falls in line with most the way that most guys think anyway, you know, like I certainly was like that as well. You know, I didn't want to burden anybody. You know, you feel like you're not burdening people, especially if you're going through something that your family are going through as massive as a wee girl. You know, being diagnosed with cancer as well. Like, I can imagine that. But it's funny how we do that, though. We try to kind of minimise our own thing, because for everybody else, like, to kind of make them feel okay and it's all right. What happened then after that? You know, you've went and you've spoke to the kind of family. Was there a period where, you know, obviously you've spoke publicly about, you know, your testicular cancer. I'm just trying to think what I'm trying to ask. I suppose from a mental health angle, what was your recovery like with that? You know, obviously, you know, it's a huge impact. Your family were going through a lot. How did that impact you mentally, and how did you recover from that?
Oh, I mean, it was just really difficult. It was really tough, and I think actually the golf became quite a big distraction, you know. And I actually had a very similar mental thing. So my dad passed away at the end in 2020, sort of the end towards that first end of the wave of COVID in 2020. And being on a golf course was actually quite a nice distraction. And actually, people thought the opposite, because they thought, oh God, like Matt, your dad was his best friend and mentor with the golf, and it must be so tough for him to be on a golf course with his dad not being around. And actually, I was like, if I'm not on the golf course, all I do is think about my dad all day, and that makes me feel terrible that he's passed away. Actually, when I'm on the golf course, focusing on getting the golf ball around the golf course, it was almost like 4 or 5 hours worth of respite from thinking about dad. The golf gave me something to think about. And it was very similar with the testicular cancer. It was like the more that I sat around thinking about it, the worse it was.
Yeah.
And actually, the thing that I was trying to achieve was to be a better golfer, and being on the golf course sort of put everything else to the back of my mind. So I think golf over the years, I know the game has driven me insane at times. I think actually golf has been quite a solid help to some of my mental health. Certainly some of the bigger sort of things that have come up in life, you know, the bigger sort of hurdles that have come up in life, golf's actually really helped see me through that. And I think you see that with a lot of people. You know, I think the golf course is a bit of a sanctuary to a lot of people. The golf course it's an amazing place for people to just be free spirited, and there's no work. You don't have to worry about work or the kids or money, or, you know, just go and play your golf. It's a few hours away from the rest of the world.
Yeah. Mate, I totally agree, and I'm by no stretch of the imagination good at golf, but, you know, I started playing golf again last August. I'd played for a little bit when I was like in my teens, and then my cousin Neil started playing, and he's like, mate, just come out, and work was stressful or some things happening in the family, and he's like, all you've got to do is focus on hitting that wee white ball that way. And that's it. And even when we went to the driving range and stuff, and I didn't realize, you know, how cathartic it was just swinging a golf club, you know. And it's been one of the best things that, you know, I've picked up, you know, to kind of go back out, and especially like with the job that we do, you know, it's like I kind of unfortunately, you know, like fortunate that I'm in the position I'm in, but it's like I am Mr. Cancer, testicular cancer, because of, you know, it's like it's my identity because of the job that I do. So it allows that distraction from that, and I'm able to kind of just concentrate on this one wee thing, and that's it. And it's I'd recommend it to anybody to just go out and go to your local driving range and de-stress.
Yeah, I also think as well that when you look at someone like what you're doing, the job that you do is so important that the person who's in charge of that job, which is you need to put in good performances. My job, I only earn a living if I put in a good performance.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm a sportsman. The performance has to be there. So I will have the best impact I can when my performance is high. So a lot of things have to be right for that performance to be good. Mentally I have to be good. I have to feed myself well. I have to travel well, rest well, practice well, coach well, all that stuff. Tick all those boxes, then I've got a chance. When you're in a position like yourself, you've got to stick in that performance as well. Then you start to benefit. You actually get out more because of your performance going in is better in the first place. So your rest and your recovery, the way that you look after you is looking after that performance. So you could go off tearing around. You could have 100 days on the spin talking about testicular cancer. None of them might be to your top level. You might be better off doing less days, really controlled, really focused, and then you benefit more people because your performance was better. And I see that a lot in a lot of areas of life where people they do this, they get pulled from pillar to post. They actually end up not being very good at anything.
Mm-hmm.
They do lots of things adequately well. But actually, if they just dropped a couple of bit and managed their time a little bit, your performance can go through the roof, which is why bits and pieces around cancer awareness, it's life-saving stuff. And you're using a podcast and a platform and all these bits and pieces that were never existed 15, 20 years ago. Is it any surprise that we're getting better at it? Is it any surprise that the survival rates are up and people are doing better with it? You look and think these things are so important. And when you've been through it like we both have, you wouldn't wish it on your worst enemy. And part of that is, get down to doctors and get checked. It's just go and get it checked. You'll be fine. And then when someone says there's nothing better, when someone says, I only went to the doctors because you told me to, and I did have a problem and they did look after me and now I'm all right too. You think, brilliant. Like that's way better than playing good golf to me. You know what I mean? That means the world.
I think as well, it's such a great insight, that you clearly have as a sportsman as well. That mentality of no, I know how to look after myself and how to perform well, and to perform well, you do need to have that rest and that recovery and things like that as well. So that's a great line and a great insight for anybody listening or watching.
I think probably the biggest thing for most listeners, I'd imagine the audience on a thing like this is probably predominantly male. And you look and you go, are you being a good dad? Are you being a good husband? Are you, all those bits about being a bloke who's got a stressful world, trying to make a living, all that sort of stuff. Sometimes it's all right just to sit back and just sit in your car, put on a good song and just think, do you know what? I'm just going to have 5 minutes before I go in the house because I want to walk through that front door and be the best dad, the best husband, the best... That, and we don't. You don't take time. You burst through the front door, something's out of line, you fall out with the wife, you shout at the kids, then you feel bad about it. Rather than actually a bit of, sometimes we could all do with a little Jose Mourinho sat there, just a bit of man management all the time.
Yeah.
Don't go flying off doing that. Just look up, and I feel like I've over the years got a little better at that. It's just take a week off, take a bit of rest, look after, you've got to try to look after yourself so that performance is good. And then ultimately, I do that for golf. But ultimately in life, I think if people start doing that better in their lives, you actually start to be happier, and you do have a bit more time. You are a bit more chilled out. You don't get as angry. Things don't bother you as much, and life can just be 100 miles an hour. And how many people are there out there that don't go to the doctors to go and get a testicular cancer thing, maybe scanned or whatever, just because they don't have time. You don't have time to do anything. Running around, there's always something that's more important. And then you look and think, how could anything be more important than getting down to doctors to have a quick check if you're not happy with something that doesn't feel right or look right? How could you be too busy with work or too busy with this? You have to be able to make time, don't you? Manage your time better.
Yeah. And especially, you're right, when it comes to your health and it comes to going to the doctors, you have to kind of make that a priority. Because at the end of the day, that if you leave it and you're iller for longer, you're not going to be there for your family in the best way possible. You're not going to be doing the things that you want to do. So it's such an important point to make sure that
I think
you
also
are.
as well, I don't think sometimes I think the NHS do an amazing job. They do. I mean, they do. It's one of the best health services on the planet, really. We're very lucky in the UK to have access to the NHS. But where it's so busy and it's so difficult to get certain bookings and appointments and bits and pieces, that's enough to put people off as well, which again, what I was saying about at club level, if you could get bits into local football clubs, local golf clubs, I do think that access point is massive. If you could just pop down a golf club next Wednesday and have your testicular cancer stuff checked, it's a lot easier than trying to phone the GP and book, and you might have to wait a few weeks, or it's it's a convenience thing as well, isn't it? The world's 100 mile an hour, everybody's busy. It's a lot easier if you make it more convenient for guys to go and get checked. It does help.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I think that's the thing. It's as men, especially like British men, where it's all about the convenience to make us be able to do something. It's like, is it easy? Oh, okay, I'll go do it then.
Yeah. But I also think it's like, down at the golf club, if they said on where there's a doctor's surgery just around the corner from the golf club, if they said, well, there's an open day at the doctor's next Saturday, you can go and get checked for nothing, no one would go.
Yeah.
Well, very few would go. Whereas if it was downstairs in the locker room and everybody was playing their golf, oh, come on, we might as well go and get checked. Come on, we'll go and get checked. You'd end up with a big queue of people all just following suit because it's just easy, And I think through the sports clubs, I think you've got a lot more opportunity with, especially like I'm involved with the local football club as well, and you've got access to all those all the different age groups and where they are, and it's just easy to get people all under the same roof. It just gives you the chance to do what the right testing is, if it's a blood test or whatever it is, scannings, bits and pieces. It is a lot easier than it is in a doctor's surgery when it's in that sort of sporty environment.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And obviously, like looking back, to when you were diagnosed and everything that you kind of been through now, and where you're sitting now in terms of how you feel about testicular cancer, what you know about it. Is there anything that you would want to say to yourself back then that would maybe help you, that would help somebody who's maybe listening just now?
I think it's very easy because I didn't have any knowledge about testicular cancer until I had it. Then I didn't have a lot of time to learn anything about testicular cancer while I had it, and then it was all done. And I think it's when you look at those surgeons and the people that work within the NHS and stuff, they're so experienced. And I feel like when I was sat in that hospital, I don't think I fully trusted the people that were about to look after me. Whereas now, I look back and think they knew exactly what they were doing. They were very well drilled on how they were going to handle me and the drugs and the surgery and the follow-up and the blood test and everything else. And actually, if I could go back and say one thing to myself in that moment, it would have been, Matt, chill. These people are probably just as good at dealing with testicular cancer as you are at dealing with a golf course. These people are class at what they do. We've all got our little area of expertise where we're all, we've all got our little thing, haven't we? Golf happens to be mine, and there's people who work in the NHS where testicular cancer and other cancers, that's their thing. You've got to put a little bit of faith in there, and just whatever level you're at, whatever situation you're in, someone is trying to look after their best in your health is in their absolute best interest. They don't want to get it wrong. They want to get it right, and they've got the levels to help you.
Yeah, oh no, definitely. And I think it's such a great point as well, like to kind of put the trust in the NHS like that as well. They have got you. They are only out to make sure that you get better, and I think that's a really kind of lovely point. I suppose, kind of wrapping up as such as well, when people hear the name Matthew Southgate in 20 years' time, what is it you want to be, remembered for, and how do you want to be remembered?
Well, as a golfer or as a person?
Both, both.
I think from a golfing standpoint, I think I'm getting there with bits and pieces. I think I'd like to be remembered as a golfer as just being a fierce competitor, but I try to do things the right way. If someone plays great, just get your hat off and shake their hand, and if you give everything that you've got and it's not quite enough, you couldn't have done any more. I'd like to be remembered for that guide. I never gave up. I always tried my best, but I always tried to do it from the right place as a gentleman. And I just loved playing the game. And then I think as a bloke, I think I'd like people to sort of be able to say he was very selfish when he had to be, which is why he was a professional in the first place. But actually, as soon as there was an opportunity to be kind and do something for someone else, he was the first person to put his hand up to help. And I do pride myself on that. I do try to do my bit. I try to do my bit where I volunteer down the football club. I try and do bits down at the golf club. I tried not to live a life that's it's not just selfish. Sometimes I have to be very selfish, put the golf first. Other times I like to be, go and help somebody else. Go and put somebody else first, and there's a feel good factor to that.
Yeah, mate, that's honestly, it's lovely that you think like that as well. And I suppose what's next for you now? What's the next tournament you're playing in? What's the next kind of stages for you this over this year?
I'm playing. I'm in Switzerland next week on the Hotel Planet Tour. Then we're in Austria, and then I'm back in England for the week after that. I'm sort of breaking the schedule up at the minute, trying to sort of play 3 or 4 weeks on the spin, and then take maybe a week off. When I was a bit younger, I used to just play every week, but I can't really do that anymore. So trying to just manage my time. I kind of left school at 16 with the dream of I just want to be the best golfer I can possibly be. I've got absolutely no idea how that will look, and I don't know I don't. Part of me doesn't care what that looks like. And still to the day, 20 odd years later, that's the only reason why I play. I just want to find out how good I can be, and I just feel like I'm on a journey. There's been ups, there's been downs, but ultimately I will get to 50, 55 and look back and say, I was really good that week. I was really good. I'll nitpick out all the best bits, and that'll be good enough for me. Whatever happens, that happens, and the support's amazing. It's great. And I like that. I think people quite like that mentality of I'm just trying my best. I'm going to be the best that I can be. And if you ever see me out on a golf course, give us a wave, give us a cheer, and try to enjoy it. If doing things like this ever helps anybody, it's a privilege to be able to help. And in some respects, you kind of look back on those things and think, I'm quite glad that I had testicular cancer because I pulled through it and maybe helped somebody else as well. So if someone had to do it, I'd put my hand up to do it all over again to save someone else doing it.
Yeah. Well, I'm so grateful that you came on Check 1 2 as well. I think that telling stories from all perspectives and all kind of walks of life really does help get that message out there, and I'm so grateful to you for continue to spread awareness through your story. And yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, there's going to be for us reaching as many audiences as we can, and sports, like you say, it's such a great way to reach especially young men in the age range of testicular cancer, and whoever follows you on your journey, your Instagram page, all your fans, if one of them sees this and goes, yeah, I better start doing a regular check because Matthew has, then you've won a watch, So yeah, thank you so much, mate.
It's a pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Keep doing all the great work that you're doing. It's absolutely crucial. I don't think you'll ever realise how much the bits and pieces make a massive difference collectively. I think the whole world, we're getting much better with the cancer stuff, and we've got a long way to go, but we're on our way. All those, and just a quick one as well. That just while I've got the opportunity to do it, all those people that run that London Marathon and all those marathons, aren't they just amazing? They're absolutely amazing.
Awesome.
It just blows me away. There's a guy. He's the captain down at Lee Rambers, which is our local football club, and he ran the London Marathon. He's never done one before. He was like 3 hours or something. It blows my mind. You see all those little heads popping up and down, and you know that everybody there is running for a great cause and all the stuff that people do to raise awareness and raise money around the world. Like, fair play to everybody. Let's keep doing it. Let's keep doing the fundraisers. Keep doing all the checks, all the bits and pieces that we can do, because it really does make it. We are making a massive difference. Everybody together, not us as us two, like everybody together. We will. I'm not sure that we'll ever get to a point where we live in a world that's cancer free, but I certainly think we can make a big difference to getting closer to understanding how we fix more people and make life a bit better for a lot of people that are way worse off than us.
Yeah. And just like just what you're saying about the London Marathon, then I have to kind of shout out Todd, who is a dual testicular cancer survivor who supports Cahonas. He runs a coffee shop and roastery up here called the Good Coffee Cartel. Him and his wife, not runners, they ran the London Marathon for Cahonas. So yeah, it's like we were proud to see the kind of the pictures and stuff for them. So you're right, you know, people who give up their time to do these massive achievements, it really helps spread that awareness and helps us. So yeah,
they're amazing. People are amazing. It's amazing when everybody clubs together. It's amazing what you can pull off. Sometimes it doesn't feel like that. We all feel. I think a lot of the time you feel a bit detached, living your own little life. When we all work together in a little community, we're very, very powerful together as people. With a bit of love, you know, bit of common ground, bit of love, bit of respect. It's pretty cool what you can achieve, and I love seeing that. I think that's those days. I wish it was the London Marathon kind of atmosphere every day, because I think the world will be a better place.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for your time today, mate. I genuinely appreciate it. If you need anything from Cahonas, you know, reach out. And yeah, thanks, man.
No problem. That's been great. Thank you very much for having me on.
The lessons that I learned, every fall, every loss was a bridge that I burned. Now I'm stronger, now I'm wiser, got the fire in my soul. Every step, every breath, getting closer to my goal. Haters gonna hate.